Our Across the Aisle segment tonight, the New York Times in its botched climate change report, it was fake news, as in wrong. This secret, gloomy climate change report was actually just recycled news, which is why they had to post a correction. Correction, August 9, 2017, an article on Tuesday about a sweeping federal climate change report referred incorrectly to the availability of the report. While it was not widely publicized, the report was uploaded by the nonprofit Internet Archive in January. It was not first made public by the New York Times. That's nice that they printed this tiny little correction for no one to see, but it's too little too late. All the sycophants in the mainstream media breathlessly ran with it. Watch.
A new federal report warns of the dire consequences of climate change, conflicting with statements from Trump administration officials about the human impact on global warming. The report, published by the New York Times on August 7th, was compiled by a group of scientists from 13 federal agencies. They determined that it was, quote, extremely likely that more than half of the global mean temperature increase since 1951 was caused by human influence on climate.
The impact of climate change is dangerous, and it is already being felt in the United States. That is according to a new government report obtained by the New York Times, and it says, in part, quote, evidence for a changing climate abounds from the top of the atmosphere to the depths of the ocean. And it goes on to say many lines of evidence demonstrate that human activities, especially emissions of greenhouse gases, are primarily responsible for the observed climate changes over the last 15 decades.
We are quickly approaching a point where if we don't stop putting carbon in the atmosphere, we're going to pass kind of a point of no return of increasingly dire consequences for humanity. And this report says that's happening even faster than was predicted in the past.
New this morning, a federal report shows the U.S. is already feeling the effects of climate change. But the president doesn't want the report released. Fox 23's Jacqueline Fell is in Washington to explain why.
I read through this report by 13 federal agencies. It was released by the New York Times. It says the average temperature in the United States has risen rapidly and drastically since 1980.
With me now, history professor and author of Obama's America, a transformative vision of our national identity, Ian Reifowitz. Ian, I have tears in my eyes when I heard that reporters say that Trump doesn't want it released. Oh no, the sky's falling. And we're at a point of no return. I'm sure all of these reporters that were just breathlessly reporting over this, I'm sure they're all going to move to TP so that they can stop with their CO2. And, you know, they're going to do everything they can to be more green, right?
Well, we could always interview them again in a few months and see if they've changed their habits. Look, the New York Times has egg on its face here. It's screwed up. It said that this report was something that they were releasing, and as you said, it had already been available on this nonprofit website. So the New York Times made a mistake. Of course, that doesn't change the reality of the report itself. Whether the New York Times revealed it or it was or a draft of it was posted on the Internet Archive website a few months ago, the report's still true. The report is that, as you played in those clips, that 13 federal agencies have found unambiguous, and that's their word, evidence that we have climate change getting resulted from human activity. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? I hope President Trump takes the advice of his scientists seriously, and I know he's got some advisors like Scott Pruitt who are coming at it from one direction. I believe, from what I understand, Ivanka Trump comes at it from a different direction, and we'll see whose advice he ends up taking. Really quickly, so irresponsible journalism sounds like you would agree with me. And it's like, do they not have fact checkers over there? I mean, this was one of their biggest stories for the week. So would that make you, as a reader, I'm sure you read the New York Times, does that make you question the stuff that they're putting out there? Well, I think anytime any news organization makes a mistake, you want to make sure that they that they hold themselves accountable. So certainly it's a mark on their record in the negative direction that they made this mistake, but it's a mark in a positive direction that they corrected it. If we were going to, reject every news organization that made a mistake, I think Fox News would be in quite a bit of trouble. President Trump has said some things that have not been true. Even just a couple of days ago, he said there was going to be a press conference Monday. He didn't have a press conference today. He didn't even take a question. So we've got a lot of people saying things that turned out not to be true. The question is, generally speaking, are they reporting in a way that presents the truth, and when they screw up, do they hold themselves accountable? Everybody's going to screw up now and again. The question is, are they reliable in the long run? The New York Times made a big mistake today, and it's going to have to go a ways to do better in the future.
I just don't understand how they could make a mistake at that level. I mean, it is irresponsible, and it makes all journalism look bad. Now, my view is that carbon dioxide is not the primary contributor to global warming. If you look back at the world and history and in general, we've gone through several ice ages. So there's been dips, and we've seen the temperatures go high and go low. And so when we talk about like global warming or the temperature in general, you know that like over the past 30 years or 100 years, it's moved up less than 1 degree. So for us to just stop everything and move into teepees because of this just seems irrational.
Well, look, I'm not a scientist. I don't have a degree in science, but the scientific consensus here is overwhelming. There is no debate. The scientific community is unified. All of these scientific studies are peer-reviewed, which means they're looking to take each other apart. I know a little bit about this as an academic. When you're talking about peer review, you're talking about a process where if you get something wrong, you have people who are your peers looking at it. And that's something newspapers don't necessarily have peer review. The Washington Post doesn't fact check the New York Times. Maybe they should, or vice versa, or Fox News, or any of them. But in the academic world, you have this process of peer review. It is not easy to get through. When you've got something like the data on climate change, it has been vetted and it has been reviewed, and there really is no debate around it. Plus, you have all the other countries in the developed world on one side, and we're on the other. Are we, are we right and they're all wrong? Or what's more likely? What's more likely is that they've got it right and that they're taking steps to do things that they feel are necessary because they don't want the world to be inhabitable in 100 years.
Well, and when you say that they all agree, the Union of Concerned Scientists are the ones who contributed to this report. And I interviewed John Coleman, one of the founders of the Weather Channel, and he said one of his friends, who's a scientist, signed up his dog. They're just putting people on this list. We don't even know who they are. So again, I just think that it is impossible for man by itself to be completely changing the world. And what John Coleman told me was that most of this is due to the sun. No matter what we do, no matter what we change, we cannot stop the weather from being weather. And we see the latest information statistics from NASA that shows that the sea levels are actually going down, not up. And so there's always going to be constant changes. And so I guess my point is that anything to do with the man-made global warming is really all about more taxes for the people, control. And I will agree with you on this, I'm sure this is what you're thinking. I do believe that humans have an impact on the earth when it comes to pollution, and we need to do everything we can to keep our environment clean. But when it comes to temperatures, I don't think that we're the ones responsible for that. I got to go. Thank you.